Okay, all right. You've landed on Island 49. I'm your host, Weston Smith. Just getting settled in. Took a few days away from the pod, a few days away from just the NFL in general. Obviously, welcome the new addition to the family. So we're just getting settled in, getting ready to go, begin that fun old paternity leave, and we'll spend more time with you while I'm not in the everyday gig, if you will, outside of being a dad and a husband, of course. But wanted to get this out this afternoon. I wanted to get it out prior to round two of the 2023 NFL draft. And I wanted to talk about what we all saw transpire last night, or lack thereof. And it's hard for me to walk away from what I saw last night and not feel like the 49ers are losers from round one. Let me clarify that, right? Still a highly competitive team in a much weaker conference in the National Football League. But here we are, our second consecutive year of missing the opportunity to potentially add some top tier type talent and youth to this roster, which wouldn't sting as much if the move that we made to put us in this particular situation felt like it had a course, or felt like it was coming to fruition, or had some sort of resolution to it. But here we go, walking into the season with a ton of uncertainty around the quarterback position, which that trade in the 2020 draft was supposed to rectify and fix for us, so that being void of two consecutive first round picks didn't feel like it would have as much of an impact. Today, we don't even draft till the end of the second portion of day two. Now, I do expect that there's some names that slide that are high on the board for the 49ers. They'll make the move because they have the 11 picks over the next 2 days to be able to slide accordingly. Find those best players available, be very intentional in targeting specific positions, etc. But just for the mere fact that they're in their second year consecutively without having a first round pick because of the Trey Lance trade, and again, no resolution in sight to this potential issue, it that makes it sting. That makes it, you feel like you're missing out, right? Like it's Christmas Eve and you're watching all the kids and in the family unwrap gifts and you're like, where's mine? So totally understand that. I think what makes it worse is, I mentioned earlier, that weaker conference. There's only a few teams that stand out to me that are immediate competitors rolling into 2023. And we watched two of them in a vacuum and on paper, albeit, get significantly better. So you have your defending NFC champs, right? The Philadelphia Eagles, somehow adding Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round. We knew they had two first round picks. We know they had a mass exodus of talent. We know that they were going to be able to bring back some additional youth to this team with those two first round picks. Just never thought in a million years it'd be those two super talented individuals. Depending whose draft board you're looking at, you're talking about two top 10 talent individuals that were acquired in the top 30 picks. I don't know how the NFL, like, there always seems to be this team that just like, hey, they stay the course. They're patient, and somehow it pans out for them. The Baltimore Ravens used to do this back in the day. I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs have been in that position to just add talent, even though they're at the bottom half of the first round, while other teams are reaching, panicking, etc. It's happened to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Jalen Carter, arguably, outside of his off the field issues that have taken place recently, which drew to character concerns around him and forced him to slide a little bit, could potentially be positioned as the best player available in this draft, including those quarterbacks, the three of which went in the top four picks. Nolan Smith's another guy, just flies all over the football field. I think at the combine, what did he run, like a 4.39 or something like that? That's crazy for his position type. And, they, I don't know, like, you stay the course, they get better. And then again, going back to me saying that we don't have the opportunity to add the additional talent, not picking till 99 overall. And I know we've been stacking, accordingly over the years, and have people that we feel in their second and third season with a little bit, of the maturation process under their belt might be able to step in. But this is superstar talent, again, in a vacuum, that it looks like this team, the defending NFC champs, are adding to their roster. And then you don't even have to go that far. You can stay right in division and talk about Seattle adding arguably the top wide receiver in the draft. Could potentially, that wide receiver core becomes pretty scary with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and now Jackson and Jigba, Smith-Njigba. It's, you know, I know Tyler Lockett's is on the back nine of his career, but he's still highly productive. And even if he is to slide, between DK and then now adding JSN, you're looking at two people that could haunt the 49ers for quite some time. I know that comes back to the quarterback position, but and Gino's on a yearly rental based on that extension that he signed. And some, the optimistic 49er fans are going to say, yeah, well, it's all up to Gino and, he'll cave, and what good is having this talent? If you don't have the individual qualified to get him the rock. And I understand that sentiment, but what I would caution you all to remember is that this is just a team in division that was a playoff, team last year that is still adding intricate pieces. And I think they're trying to regrow this Legion of Boom when that defense was so fierce, right? I mean, you saw great play from the rookie corners last year, in Wooten and Bryant, and now they went ahead and pulled off who in my guesstimation, was kind of cornerback one in this year's draft, Devin Witherspoon. Physical guy, comes up and covers, will get his hands on you. You're going to have some more dog fights now, especially between like Debo and Ayuk, are already feisty individuals themselves. Team got better. I don't care how you spin it. A competitive, capable rival in division got better on paper, where we're still stagnant, right? It still remains to be proven if we are a better team this year than last year. And on paper, we're still even, in the sense of like, hey, we have no new additions as of late, especially because we haven't had to pick in the draft this year. I would say, Seattle's still missing some pieces, right? They still need to be able to stop the run. That offense is still a little lackluster without a tight end. But they have some youth and they have some pieces there. And then to me, they're only getting better. And based on how I saw round one pan out, I wouldn't even be shocked to see the Seahawks. I mentioned Geno Smith's scenario earlier. To see them, they have the capital to do it if they want to slide up one or two slots now that Will Levis has slipped into the second round. Now, I'm not a huge believer in Will Levis. I know there's a lot of people that are. Could be an opportunity to have that guy of the future based on Geno's scenario. Redshirt him for the year, let him sit, let him learn, the mechanics of the NFL, and then boom, right? Do you have your 5, 7, 10-year quarterback right there that's going to make you highly competitive in the division? So concerns, right? And the concerns don't stop at just the 49ers not having a first round pick, let alone a second round pick in this draft. I know we have 11 others over the next two days. It's just still concerning to me when I'm watching other teams get better. Like when I look the ones that we are most notably going to compete with, when I look at the Eagles and when I look at the Seahawks, like they didn't reach, right? They didn't panic. They didn't make a head scratching move, in my opinion. They let their board fall to them, and they were, very able to capitalize. And that Witherspoon pick for me is kind of like a home run. And then the JSN is just icing on the cake for them. Like, who can't not be a JSN fan based on his production at Ohio State? So again, I'll go back to how I started this. 49ers are still in contention for this. Arguably one of the league's best rosters as we sit today. They have a ton of talent themselves, but the fear is you never want to see the competition get better, right? Like you always want your team to be the one that's ascending in the right direction and doing such while adding youth to that roster. So I never put grades on anybody's draft or anything like that because, what do we know? This is all in a vacuum. We don't know if any of these individuals pan out, let alone all of them. But on paper, in that vacuum, things look pretty good for those teams. And now the ball's in the 49ers court. 11 picks over the next 2 days. I mentioned a deep, talented roster. Do you make all 11 picks and are you stashing for the years beyond? Or do you package them together and go find those 5, 6, 7, individuals that really fit need, draft board, value, etc. They have an opportunity here to go win day 2 and day 3 of the draft just based on volume of picks. And candidly, to be kept into the conversation, at least in this offseason, let's expect a home run, or I think they need home runs on both of these days. They need to find, that Dre Greenlaw-esque, that Fred Warner-esque, that Hufunga-esque guy that kind of just comes onto the scene with those later picks and might become an immediate contributor or an immediate starter. Because while the competition is still neck and neck, the youth movement that these teams are now acquiring and being able to they're essentially what they're being able to do is create larger separation over the next few years, right? That's what the difference between a win now roster looks like and a sustainable roster. And I would say right now, I'm not the only one to think this. All you got to do is log on to Twitter, look at all your favorite 49er content creators, and they're going to tell you something very similar, that this team's built to win now. And that's part of the conversation around who's the quarterback going to be, and can you invest the time to have those individuals grow. You have some top heavy contracts. Now, the one thing I will say that makes me feel a little bit more at ease kind of walking out of that draft is I feel like I can breathe a little easier that we're definitely going to see another year of number 11 Brandon Ayuk. I think in their eyes, if they were to move on from them, because keep in mind, next year that wide receiver room looks to cost 40 million plus between two players. So is it Debo? Is it Ayuk? Yes, we talked about picking up the extension, and no, we're not going to do that till after the draft. I think that gives them flexibility. But I think in their mind, if somebody was to knock and miss out on their wide receiver and would offer, that somewhere between 20 and 31 on the board last night, they probably would have bit. And it probably would have been the end of Brandon Ayuk in a 49ers uniform. So I'm breathing a little easier, feeling like we'll get one more year and we'll see how that situation plays out. Don't want to lose talent. Listen, what I'm about to say, please don't misconstrue this. I too am quite aware that Trey Lance has not played a lot of football in the NFL right now. And there's still a lot to be that he has to prove to win this job back. So I'm not under the disillusion that any team was going to be offering a first round pick for this particular player. But I do start to think that if there was going to be movement on that player, chatter would have picked up a lot last night during the draft in those lulls when teams feel like they're missing out or might have missed a guy and start already thinking about the alternatives. Hey, chatter might have picked up a little bit more as to, is there a second or third day compensation related to the movement? So I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident that Trey's going to get an opportunity here pending Brock's injury going into training camp to compete. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. We want him to be in a position to compete. I just talked about how the trade up to go get him, has hindered some things, especially because we haven't been able to see what he can really do in a full season or know what we have in number 5 on this roster. So if I had to find the silver lining and I had to find a win from last night, because there weren't many of them for the San Francisco 49ers, it's feeling a little bit more confident that Ayuk is here for the 2023 season. Anything can happen in the early portion of night 2. And certainly the same can be said for Trey, but starting to feel like if we didn't hear that chatter kind of pick up, there's how the league might value him, and then there's how the 49ers might value them, right? The league might say, hey, I got a 4th and a 7th, right? Or a 4th this year and a 5th next year, or something along those lines. With 49, that's probably just not enough to move on from him in terms of just like opportunity cost and what you gave up to him and the uncertainty around, is Brock going to be ready to go right out of the gate? Hey, love to have this guy here. Let's see if he can reach that ceiling. And if he does and he plays well in the beginning, you don't even look back. You just keep going, right? Like, this is what you invested in. This is what you were hoping for. This is what you saw before you pulled the trigger, number 3 overall on Trey Lance. So that's my silver lining. It is what it is. I wanted to get this out. prior to rounds 2 and 3 this evening. Tonight's a big night. I know it's 3 picks. I know it's literally at the bottom here, but there's an opportunity for them to slide around a little bit, because keep in mind they don't pick early again tomorrow, right? They have no 4th round picks. They're loaded with 5th and 7th round picks, to equate to the total 11 that they have. So let's see if they leverage those 3 picks. If it was up to me, if I'm thinking about like where I would go, I never think teams that are drafting based on need is good business, right? I think when you have a deep team, you're just looking to add good players to your football team, regardless of the position. But if I'm being selfish, I think safety is definitely a position need. I've been adamant about they need to figure out kind of I would say the solution behind George Kittle. He's not going to be here forever. May not want to play football forever. Dude's living his best life, and this offense does hum when the tight end's involved. And George Kittle does a lot of things. Can they find a tight end? That's kind of where I'm looking. And then I want to see BPA, right? Just best player available. If it happens to be at a position of need, fantastic. But let's just go find good football players that fit the build of what the San Francisco 49ers are trying to accomplish. So that's it. I didn't want to be too long. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Best of luck to the faithful this evening as we sit and, I would say ruin our mentality and destroy our minds and agonize as we get through the next 2 rounds of the NFL draft. And I'll be back with a recap of that as well. But like I said, appreciate you passing by Island 49. I'm Weston Smith. Till next time.